Hunter x Hunter Chapter 396 has been released, and it is an absolute masterpiece. Even better, in my opinion, than the Barnstorming Chapter 395, which ushered in the Phantom Troop flashback. This chapter, I'm not sure that it'll appeal to absolutely everyone because it is slower. It isn't full of as many revelations as some may have expected following 395, some who may have wanted a faster pace and tons of revelations and plot details and details about the Kurta and some potential theories being confirmed or denied. Some may be a bit let down by this, but not me. This was pure storytelling brilliance. I think it offers tons of great things for Uvo, tons of great things for Chrollo once again, the troop overall, and it adds so much poetry to the story. It recontextualizes a lot of York New and the Spider, which is not something that Togashi tends to do very often, but he does it here. He makes one of my favorite arcs in York New elevated significantly, and he's making my favorite antagonistic group even better than I thought they would be. And Chrollo, and Paku, and Uvo, it's amazing stuff. The callbacks, the dual meaning to a lot of lines said in York New, there is so much to dig into, and I'm sure that I'm missing a bunch of stuff as well. And I will only discover more as you guys let me know about things in the comments and or Twitch chat. But yeah, let's dive into it. Just to let you know, just a reminder, I read these chapters every Friday at around 10:30 a.m. Eastern, if you want to join into those live reads. But yeah, this chapter is a slower pace as we get into the theatrical performance, the dub, that Chrollo was working on with Paku and Sarasa and Sheila at the end of last chapter. And I'm okay with that. I'm more than okay with that. I want to spend as much time as possible in this flashback. I want to soak it in. This is something I've been waiting for years, and people who have been following the series since its inception have been waiting for this for 20 years. So no, don't rush it. Take your time, give us all the little details, all the little interactions, just show us Meteor City, show us the Spider, and that's what Togashi's doing. So the chapter starts as people are gathering for this show, and what becomes very clear through these events, which we'll get into the specifics like always, is that the Phantom Troop, the Spider, was formed primarily from the dregs and the core of a beautiful childhood innocence. And that is expressed not just through the plot events, but through the tone of this chapter. There is lots of beautifully cute, adorable, heartwarming, endearing interactions, slice of life, for a lot of the members of the troupe as they interact and grow and bond. We see them connect for the first time and properly form this family. And it's beautiful in that way, but so deeply sad and haunting because we know something is going to change this. Something is going to inexorably change Chrollo for the worse from his perspective and the perspective of the Phantom Troop members. He is going to be broken by something. And so that makes these ephemeral moments so deeply affecting. Notably, some interesting stuff during the beginning of the performance or the show is that Finks and Uvo, who are the tough guys, the bullies in a sense, the tough customers, they're able to be taken care of by Sarasa. She knows how to work them, and she says notably that Finks is a softie deep down, and she knows how to handle him, it'll be easy. And through this, she shows a great amount of emotional intelligence, interpersonal intelligence, and she's kind of the glue and heart of the group in a lot of ways. She's invaluable. So the show happens, it's tons of fun, the crowd love it. I love that it is this performance for Meteor City, this sort of shining light in this place of desolation and darkness, and this malaise, this purposeless malaise for everyone there. And these kids are able to make a life for themselves within it, at least at this point in their life. But nonetheless, this shining light in their lives, this bit of entertainment and fun, is a great distraction, and it's just so lovely that Chrollo puts it together for them for this reason. And also, he just enjoys doing this. He enjoys performing, he enjoys being the chameleon and embodying all these different roles. Again, a bit of a precursor to what he is now, this identityless person who needs to embody the powers of other people rather than having his own, founded upon his own personality and psychology. Notably, one of the members of this cleanup crew, the leader, I think Red, looks exactly like Gon. It looks so much like Gon or a younger Jing. Someone in my chat mentioned, could that be why Nobunaga has such an adherence to Gon and likes him so much? Potentially. He definitely did like him for his personality and spunk and his overall mentality and how it reminded him of Uvo. But that could be it as well. But yeah, everyone's experiencing this show. They're laughing, they're hyped, they're excited. The Phantom Troop members as kids are watching Shalnark, Franklin, Finks, Uvo, and we see Nobunaga. We hadn't seen him in 395, but we see him here watching and observing with, his hand on the side and his leg over his other leg, just kind of evaluating what's going on. Chrollo notably is an amazing performer. It's hard to tell that he's playing the different male voices, and the sound cuts out, and funnily, very adorably in a way, Uvo, who's been slowly more and more impressed throughout the show, goes, "Come on, Chrollo, show me more of what you got. Is that all you got?" And he says this in response to the movie cutting out, or the show cutting out. And Chrollo comes out and ends up doing his own, almost like a Rakugo performance, performing the different roles himself, and embodying these different roles for the crowd. And he doesn't miss a beat. He is so easily able to act out these different roles that are so distinct from one another. And there's this moment where he goes, "All right, we're ready to resume, so just give me a countdown. 3, 2, 1. And the crowd is chanting 3, 2, 1 with him, and there's this panel of him in front of this crowd, and it just reminded me of him conducting the orchestra. Episode 51, whatever chapter it was in the manga, Uvo's Requiem. It just reminded me of that. I don't know if that's intentional, but nonetheless, the visual illusion there is pretty clear to me. And if you're watching this video, you've read the chapter, so you know what happens at the end of it, or what's alluded to at the end of it, but I do need to read this one line from Sarasa, where she's playing a role, and she says to Sheila's role, "That's rich coming from a flirt like you. You'd have gotten captured too." This is the unofficial translation. Yikes. Oh no. I do not like the implications of that one. But then we get to this monster, this embodiment of darkness being played, the graffiti monster Graffino, and Chrollo voice acts him in this moment, and he embodies him so well that he makes the entire crowd take notice and be taken aback and be haunted and scared and stunned by this. The entire troupe take notice of this, and they feel something almost malevolent, some sort of presence. And my first reaction to this didn't have me thinking that this could be aura, but it very well could be. It very well could be, because we know aura is a direct result of a character's psychology, or it could just come out at spontaneous times. This could be that. This is also an embodiment of, we know, how Chrollo would become later in life, so this could be his aura manifesting and them feeling it in some way. Either way, he has this malevolent presence playing this horrific monster here, which is an allusion to the darkness that would take hold later. Very chilling moment. Great expression drawn by Togashi. And Chrollo has these little panels. There are a couple of little panels throughout that remind me of the darkness that would overtake him as an adult. There's this little moment before he says, "Without further ado, we will start 3, 2, 1, the countdown." There's a little moment, there's a panel where his head is down, his hair is draped over his face, and his hand is raised up. And just that visual felt so dark and ominous and indicative of where he would go in life. And there's another one later on as well, I'll draw attention to it. But nonetheless, the crowd are shocked by this aura that seems to come out from Chrollo. Uvo is absolutely taken aback, Shalnark and Franklin look shocked, Finks and Phaeton. Machi isn't really impressed, she's kind of looking from behind her arm. She is so adorable as a kid. But we have Nobunaga here, who for the first time seems to be impressed. He has his hand like this and he's grinning. And some of the lines Chrollo's saying here will paint the whole world black. A bit of a gyro element to that motivation for this villain. And then there's also a little panel. I was talking about a little panel. There's one right away, right below this page where he's talking about painting the whole world black. There's a shadowed over Chrollo face, just completely black, completely shadowed over. Again, very ominous imagery that I couldn't help but notice. But then the play takes a lighter turn as the cleanup rangers sort of cling on to the idea of hope and pure hearts and cleaning up this villain, and they defeat him. And the crowd loves it, and the priest gives Chrollo a job well done head pat, and everyone seems to be really happy with this, and it's very heartwarming. Chrollo has this posse following behind him. He not only has Paku, Sarasa, and Sheila, but also Shalnark and Franklin, who were friends with him before, but Nobunaga's following him now, and he sees in the distance Uvo, Machi, Finks and Phaeton, I think? Either way, Uvo's there for sure, and they exchange a bit of a glance. And Sarasa, the heartfelt glue that she is, walks over to Uvo, then walks back to Chrollo and says, "It was pretty amazing, you bastard. Great show. Maybe it ain't so bad after all." And then she goes, I was dubbing for him, being that communication gap between this beautifully dark, again, never endorsing anything the Phantom Troop do, but it's undeniable to me that these relationships are quite well fleshed out and beautiful, and they only enrich down the line. So yeah, beautiful because these two have a bit of a communication gap, and Sarasa bridges it really, really well, telling Crollo what Uvo really feels, knowing what Uvo feels and being able to communicate that to him, and breaking the ice in that way. But Uvo goes over to Crollo and says, there were more episodes, right, that could be dubbed? And Crollo says, yep. And he says, next time, let me play the monster. That sent chills down my spine when I read it. Let me play the monster. Is that not his role, the role that he took up in the Phantom Troop? The difference being that he didn't play or dub over any villains. He was this embodiment of fear and blood and violence. He was the monster. He was the Phantom Troop's monster. He played the monster. It reminded me immediately of the fight in York New against the Shadow Beasts and the Mafia members before them, but nonetheless, it was just him by himself, right? What did the Phantom Troop members who were with him do? They just played cards, and they let him play the villain. That is what he's been embodying since this moment. That is the root of this, and this adds so much emotional context and specificity and layers and intimacy to his role in the troop, and Crollo enabling him in that way to express himself in the only way he knows how. It's so beautiful. It adds this extra layer to their relationship and to Uvo that I think is so thought-provoking and deep and profound. It was just beautiful. And that wasn't the last of it. But yeah, the rest of the troop end up having roles given to them. Machi, being Machi, doesn't have a role just yet. She's a little cold at first, but she'll get there. And then Crollo and Uvo shake hands. He says, what you did today hit me harder than any punch I've ever taken. And they shake hands, and it's genuinely moving. This beautiful play of joy and expression, this way of art bringing these people together, and performance and theater, it spoke to Uvo more than anything in his life. This is what the troupe wanted to do from the start. They wanted to be this theater troupe, spreading these beautiful plays for other people to take joy in and communicate with through the beauty of art. The beauty of art, the beauty of performance is a primary theme in this chapter, and I think it's dwelt upon really well. And obviously, there's this notion of wanting to spread this feeling. I'm not necessarily saying that it was at the forefront of Uvo's mind, but this is their purpose in the beginning. And whether it be because they just liked expressing themselves in this way, whether it be because they wanted it to be this shining light for these people in Meteor City, whether it be both, I think the proportion of each would differ from member to member. But nonetheless, this is the core of how it was formed. They were this theater troupe. They dubbed over anime. And so we see these montages over time as they finally become the Phantom Troop, version 1, I guess, as these children. And we see these beautiful panels of them play fighting. We have Finks and Nobunaga and Phaeton play fighting, Crollo and Uvo playing around, people going over the scripts. It's just really lovely as we see them bond over time. And so now, the first version of the Phantom Troop, we have Sheila, Sarasa, Paku, Franklin, Shalnark, Uvo, Crollo, Nobunaga, Phaeton, Finks, and Machi. Just the 11 to start with. And time goes by, and very cutely, Machi says she only wants to play bad guys. But then some really important lines are exchanged here. We need more people. Should we start recruiting? And then they say, does that make us an official group? And Uvo says, of course, we're like a theater company. And then it's from Paku from which the name sprouts. Because Nobunaga says, I picture us more like a traveling group. And Pakunoda says, like a troupe. And they're going, okay, we're a troupe then, but what should our full name be? And they're going, something troupe. I don't know. Something troupe. Someone in my chat put it really well. This chapter 396 was the birth of the troupe. The next one will be the birth of the Phantom Troop. The future ones, the future chapters, I guess. They were thinking about what complexion to have on this troop of theirs. And they ended up landing on the word phantom. Something very dark, something very haunting and ominous and morbid. I think we're going to learn why they settled on the Phantom Troop name, and I think it'll be horrific. So the core of what they became was formed right here. That core is based in these familial bonds, this desire to express oneself, this desire to be seen in the world, this solace, this peace in the group, in this moment through storytelling and art and performance. And this is the precursor, these bonds, these familial connections, this expression, the togetherness in the midst of such desolation, expressing themselves in the only way they know how. Those factors are all present here, and those factors are maintained in the current version of the Phantom Troupe. The only thing is that it's a complete 180. Where they were performing before, now they're killing. They're slaughtering people, they're stealing. So I find it so interesting. The core of the Phantom Troupe was always this, but it's just there was this childhood innocence that turned into this dark menace, this tragedy, this violence, this blood. And that needs an inciting incident or multiple inciting incidents, and that changed the complexion of the troupe completely. But I love how here you can see the root. The writing here is so fantastic in showing us the root of how they were formed in the first place. From putting on cute shows to absolute bloody massacre, the core being the same every step of the way. Just the way in which they enact their will on the world being totally changed. And they talk a bit more, and then Uvo says something unbelievable. He says, when we started I was kind of doing the bare minimum, but now I want to kind of aim for something. And then Krollo says, what are you aiming for? And in, I think, my favorite panel of the chapter, one of my favorites in the whole series, he says, I want us to perform everywhere so I can become the world's greatest villain. And you immediately think to Yorknu. That dream of his was snuffed out. Obviously, he got what was coming to him with how many people he killed, but Kurapika broke that dream in half, into pieces. He shattered it. And more importantly, the Requiem, one of the most iconic, beautifully dark, horrifically poetic, every adjective you can think of, scenes of Hunter x Hunter. One of my favorite scenes in fiction ever was elevated with this moment, because I want to perform everywhere to become the world's greatest villain. That's the role Uvo wanted for himself. That is the expression he sought. And so not only is the Requiem this celebration of who he was and how he lived his life in reflection of him, an orchestra of death in the only way the troupe knows how, not only was it all that stuff, but we have this extra layer now. It was doing their best to allow him to carry out his dream. One final encore. Krollo, through this, embodied Uvo. In spirit, in sentiment, and his dream here, this performance that he wanted to enact everywhere, allowed him to become the greatest villain. And what does Krollo say before that? He says, let's put on a show to the rest of the troupe. That is his message to them. Put on the show like we always did. Our origin for Uvo, for him to be the world's greatest villain, to perform everywhere. And what does he say to Neon before he gives that message when he's talking to her? He says, depending on the translation, I believe in ghosts, or I believe that we all have a soul. And this was in service of Uvo's soul. It was a fulfillment of his dream, and there was something so haunting and sad and conflicting and profound and powerful about that. And all the allusions to the troupe being this theatrical nature of the troupe, the orchestra, the show, it all makes sense. Like, Togashi didn't need to flesh it out in this way. The troupe were already triple S tier, but adding this just adds so much depth and intimacy to them with this specificity, and it's unbelievable what it changes while remaining the same at the same time. The troupe helped him live out his dream one final time through the Requiem. Man. And then the end of the chapter comes. I think we saw something like this coming. Sarasa goes to find some more videotapes without anyone with her, and at the same time we have these human traffickers who have fulfilled their quota and are now going on a Meteor City hunt where they can cut loose and enjoy some sort of hunt. So I'm pretty sure she's in trouble. Will she die? That was my immediate thought, but that, we see Krollo as a kid, and just like I talked about with the Phantom Troupe having these core characteristics that remain the same pre and post this time skip, I guess, but the complexion totally different, that's the same thing with Krollo. Krollo as a kid, able to embody all these different roles. Krollo as a kid having this charisma that banded people together in this way. Krollo as a kid having this dark tinge to him. Those things were kind of precursors to the person he would become. However, a lot of other things about him do a complete 180 for reasons I talked about in the last review. So something has to happen to completely shatter his sense of self and identity. Now, what could that be? Obviously, Sarasa dying would be a horrible thing, but it doesn't really feel like that would be enough to make Chrollo change that much as a person. I think it would make sense for some of the changes in the troop members we see, but Chrollo is different. Like we talked about last week, Chrollo completely changes not just to us, but to the troop themselves later in life. So I think Sarasa is the first domino and perhaps the core of what happens, but there may be more to it, and it might not just be her death. Maybe she returns this sort of hollow shell. This person who is the heart of the group, for reasons we've talked about, returns completely different and dark and hollow. That could totally destroy the morale of the group and the spirit of the group, along with potentially some other tragedy. Maybe some horrific thing happens to her and she doesn't die. I don't want to think about that sort of thing, but who knows? Someone else in my chat actually mentioned the idea of her potentially selling off, selling people out to these traffickers. While I don't think I buy into that 100% or expect that to happen, it's hard to say that isn't valid or possible. That sort of betrayal could potentially break a person. So we'll see. There are lots of different ways this could go. Either way, I don't think it'll be something good for Sarasa, and I think next chapter will be horrific. It'll be horrendously dark, and I think it'll be a huge part of the despair and anger that Nobunaga was talking about that kicked off this flashback, that made them angry at the world at first, before they matured a bit and realized what their role and duty and identity was, and the acts they wanted to commit. What made them so angry? I think we're gonna find out at least a large portion of it in the next chapter. But that's not it. There's still questions to be answered. How far forward will this flashback go? Will it skip some time? What's the deal with Sheila, right? Sheila has this connection to the Kurtas. There's still lots of things that need to be filled in here that don't quite make sense. And I just can't wait. I can't wait to see where it all goes. What caused Chrollo's identity to shatter and project it onto the troop? Sarasa will have something to do with it, I'm sure, like I just said. Maybe the Kurtas. Will we eventually get to when Silva fought Chrollo? That's way in the future. Like I said, we don't know. Maybe that's doubtful, but even Gyro, that stuff's doubtful, but hey, as long as we're still here, it's not impossible. We can dream. I just want more and more of Meteor City, more and more of this flashback. Just, Togashi, just let me bathe in this stuff. And one more thing. I alluded to the fact that, or the theory, I guess, that next chapter will be exceedingly dark. Probably, I imagine, unless Togashi doing some sort of anticlimax or unpredictable stuff. He's known to do that. But if it follows that way, it will be deeply dark. I hope that Togashi is given every freedom in the world to make it as dark as he needs it to be, because if it's censored, or if it's held back in some way, it'll neuter the believability of the troupe. You know, we need something horrific to happen to turn them into what they became. So it only makes sense that it'll be something evil, dark, heinous, horrible. And I hope Togashi has free reign to do that. I don't imagine that he won't, but nonetheless, just talking out loud. I want it to go as dark as he thinks it should go, because that'll be authentic and genuine and loyal to the spider and to Chrollo's character, and it'll feel natural given where they are in the setting. We already know what goes on here. I guess it's time to witness it firsthand. Also, really interesting detail that's come to light, I think yesterday someone tagged me in it, I don't know. Apparently Sarasa showed up in Greed Island on Gon's book. When he was looking through the characters he'd met, Sarasa was one of the first names that we see in one of the manga panels. What the hell does that mean? Someone else was saying that Sarasa actually resembles, a grown-up potential Sarasa resembles Seriednik Seri's Nenbeast. Hey, I don't know, nothing is ruled out, I guess, but what interests me the most here is Sarasa being in Greed Island's book. That just throws me completely for a loop. I don't even know what to make of that. I really need to think about that. Please share your theories if you have any ideas. But yeah, man, what an amazing chapter. Fantastic character work, brilliant plotting, and some layers added in retrospect to the troupe that just makes them more poetic, more emotional. This element of childhood innocence being lost to them is so perfect. And man, I just can't wait for more. The next chapter cannot come any sooner. I am so hooked on this. I'm a little scared for the next one, but super excited as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the chapter as much as I did. Please share your thoughts and theories and what you think will happen in the next chapters. And yeah, as always, I'll try to put these out weekly. No promises, but I'll do my best. And catch me on Twitch to check out the live streams where we read these chapters and theorize there, right off the cuff. Other than that, many thanks for watching, guys, and stay well. Have a good one.